right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, or good day.
Good day, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world and whatever time it is. Welcome to session number 78. In our last session, 77, we had a very interesting letter from KH explaining the mystery of the unintentional plagiarist and the drama that went on with the spiritualists in America over supposedly KH's borrowing without attributing the source, things that one of their preachers had said at one of their camping events. So he explained it, and you'll have to go back and watch the last part of session 77 to get the explanation. But we didn't quite finish the letter, so we will finish up with that, but you do need to know the explanation. Go back and watch that if you haven't yet. Letter number 117 we will continue with, but before that, 2 sessions ago in session number 76, we talked about Damodar and this amazing experience he had where he was taught personally for 2.5 days by the Mahatmas, where he came back completely changed, more bold, more forceful, healthier, and ready to go. We noted that his method of delivery and explaining things changed dramatically after that. I want to read one of the things he wrote very soon after that, just a few weeks after that event, and it was a letter to an editor of someone who was criticizing theosophy, and he wrote a really excellent letter to this newspaper explaining what contemplation really was. And because it's so important, we want to know too. You would like to know.
I would love to know.
And so do I. So let's read excerpts from that. This is in the book Damodar that we've referenced before. This is actually Paul's copy, but it still has a dust jacket on it. So this is the book that we are reading from. And I'm going to have Paul read the excerpts regarding contemplation, what it is and what it is not. This was published also in the Theosophist for February 1884, but it was a letter to the editor of a different newspaper. Now, he referenced the elixir of life, which we discussed in some detail in session 29, around the 42-minute mark. So we will put a reference right up here, a link to that, if you want to go check on that right now and then come back. That's the main one, and then you can go to others from there.
Concentration is an act of higher thought, a process of meditation, really. It's part of the process of meditation.
And what are the 3 main stages of meditation?
Learning to get your mind focused first. Focus or concentration would be the very preliminary technique anyone would have to be proficient at, is just learning to focus or concentrate. And then the second stage, we tend to use the word contemplation, and maybe Damodar does too. But some other teachers, yoga scholars, would say the second stage is meditation. But we like the word contemplation because it's not true samadhi yet. Samadhi also has several stages as well, but that's the highest stage of meditation. Samadhi, where you're absorbed with the object of meditation, but then the higher stages of samadhi or higher meditation is when there is no separation between you and the thing you're focused on. It's nirbija, without seed or anchor meditation or samadhi. Was that clear as mud?
No, it's as clear as we can probably make it to most people. He's pointing out that most Westerners completely misunderstand what meditation is. As Paul said, true meditation is samadhi. If you've reached that, you are a chela. You are a chela. And the possibility of reaching that is almost impossible. without the help of one of the Mahatmas to give you that impulse. If you achieve that on your own, you're kind of one of a kind. The best that most of us can accomplish would be concentration. We can learn to concentrate. Anybody can if they put their mind to it. And even that is not easy. But contemplation is different, and he's going to tell us now what it is.
I like how you said anybody can do it if you put your mind to it. You're putting your mind to something. That's
Yes. Yes.
It's a play on words.
But what it is not is simply thinking of nothing.
Exactly. It's not just let's make our mind go blank. It is not that. Readers of theosophical literature have often expressed concern regarding apparent contradictions in its philosophy. And its philosophy refers to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali he's referencing here. A general misunderstanding of this term, contemplation, seems to prevail. The popular idea appears to be to confine oneself for half an hour or at the utmost 2 hours in a private room and passively gaze at one's nose, a spot on the wall, or perhaps a crystal. True occultism requires physical, mental, moral, and spiritual development. This paper is specially meant for the benefit of those who seem to have failed to grasp the real meaning of dhyan. That is the Sanskrit name for the second stage of this meditation process. Dharana would be the first stage, which is focus, which we mentioned. Dhyana, or dhyan, is contemplation, or the second stage, which we're discussing here. And by their erroneous practices to have brought and to be bringing pain and misery upon themselves. With the view to afford a glimpse of the reality through the dense veil that enshrouds the mysteries of this science of sciences, science of sciences, an article, The Elixir of Life, was written. Unfortunately, in too many instances, the seed seems to have fallen upon barren ground. Some of its readers only catch hold of the following clause in the said paper. Reasoning from the known to the unknown, meditation must be practiced and encouraged. But alas, their preconceptions have prevented them from comprehending what is meant by meditation. This is great. They forget that it is the inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go out towards the infinite, which in the olden time was the real meaning of adoration.
That's interesting.
Really?
That's a term used in religions.
Yeah.
Adoration, normally we think of it as worship of a god of some sort.
The inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go out towards the infinite.
And that is meditation, meaning the highest, achieving Samadhi. So if you're in a state of adoration, you're in a state of Samadhi.
Wow. Science teaches us that man changes his physical body continually. And this change is so gradual that it is almost imperceptible. Why then should the case be otherwise with the inner man? And it probably means our higher self or soul. The latter, too, is constantly developing and changing atoms at every moment.
And this is what the elixir of life was all about. This purification process that all of us must go through if we're going to be on the path. You have to eliminate all of the coarser, grosser parts of your physical body, your emotional body, your lower mental body. The higher parts, Atma, Buddhi, and upper manas, are already pure. We have to make the lower part of our nature in tune with that higher part of our nature.
And the attraction of these new sets of atoms depends upon the law of affinity, the desires of the man drawing to their bodily tenement only such particles as are en rapport,
or in sync
with them, or rather giving them their own tendency and coloring. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That might be one of the keys.
Yeah, all of this information came soon after his long instruction period with the Mahatmas. So he's filled with knowledge and the desire to teach what he has learned.
What is it the aspirant of Yoga Vidya, which means knowledge, yogic knowledge, strives after, if not to gain mukti by transferring himself gradually from the grosser to the next more ethereal body until all the veils of Maya being successively removed, his Atma becomes one with Paramatma.
And that's what it's all about, is moving slowly. You don't make a quantum leap. It's gradually eliminating bit by bit. And it takes a long time and a sustained effort to make that happen. This is self-transformation.
In one sentence there, he basically described the process of enlightenment. That term is so vague and misunderstood, really, or self-transformation. They're kind of synonymous. Enlightenment from the grossest, densest, most physical parts of ourselves, which is all that most people know, slowly moving our awareness, raising our consciousness, if you will, through the various levels of Maya, Maya meaning illusion. And we've mentioned a bunch of times that each of our bodies, in Sanskrit, they're called koshas, but they all end in the word Maya. Anamaya kosha is ana, food, the illusion of the food body. This is the basic level, the meat sack. And then the pranamaya kosha, which is our etheric body where our chakras and nadis are, but Maya, anamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, the mental, but they're all less real. They're more illusory, the word Maya, until we get to what he says here. Atma becomes one with Paramatma. Our spirit, our individual spirit becomes one with the all spirit. That's the ultimate enlightenment. But the process of getting lighter, brighter, less dense, he just described it.
Lighter and brighter,
Yeah.
yes. Enlightenment.
Yes, yeah.
In many different ways.
It doesn't mean you don't still have a physical body, though. It's just we're not confined to it, consciously confined to it.
And it's purified. It is now completely in sync with our higher selves. Now it's a perfect vehicle.
Does he suppose that this grand result can be achieved by a 2 or 4 hours contemplation?
Okay, now here's the crux of this whole discourse about contemplation.
For the remaining 20 or 22 hours that the devotee does not shut himself up in his room for meditation, is the process of the emission of atoms and their replacement by others stopped? If not, then how does he mean to attract all this time only those suited to his end?
Good question.
From the above remarks, it is evident that just as the physical body requires incessant attention to prevent the entrance of a disease, so also the inner man, or our higher self, requires an unremitting watch, so that no conscious or unconscious thought may attract atoms unsuited to its progress. This is the real meaning of contemplation. Whoa!
So, yeah, this is what we've said before. It's a 24-hour-a-day process. He is saying that is what contemplation is. You have to be thinking and in a different state of mind 24 hours a day, or as many of those as you can muster, to make it happen. It is a real effort, not just a hit and miss now and then effort.
Let's say it in a different way, too. It's not that you're not going out into the world to go to your job or to go to soccer practice or to go hang out with friends from time to time or walk in Red Rock or in nature. It's not that you're not doing that. It's how. What is your mindset? What is your mental focal point for the majority of your life? Are you not remembering your connection and your process and your attraction of atoms that you want to attract? Or are you always keeping that in the background or the substratum of your awareness while you do life? Because we've got to do life. You can't just sit in the room all day staring at a dot or something. We've got to do life and this simultaneously.
One of the best mantras I've ever heard is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you have this attitude in life, if you do everything with focus and with intention, that's how you're going to come across. And that is how you affect other people and lift them up. You have to have lifted yourself first before you can lift anybody else. Just being a cheerleader and saying, rah, 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 you can do this, does very little good.
I'd like to give just a simple example of this. It's so practical. It's nothing esoteric. If you're at work and you're, I don't know, preparing a progress report on a quarterly earnings statement, do it, but remember that you're a soul who has a pranic body and a physical body, and remind yourself that you're doing this task with your physical body in the physical world for a reason. It's your dharma to do certain things. But remember who you really are and what the ultimate goal is while you're preparing the quarterly earnings report.
Exactly that. It should always be right there in your mind at all times, no matter what else you are doing.
It'll change things. It changes your perspective. We're no longer in the muck. We have more of it like an astronaut's perspective of Earth being this perfect globe of perfection from that perspective, not necessarily from down here in traffic and in the muck, but when you remind yourself that you do have this higher view, it changes things for the better.
Or a different way to think of it is think of yourself as this highly evolved alien that has landed, and you're interacting, and you can't really explain to them who you are, but interacting at their level all the time, knowing that you are something far more than that.
It's got to be effort, in a conscious effort. This is the real meaning of contemplation. The prime factor in the guidance of the thought is will, intention, will.
Yeah, okay. You always have to have that at the source of it. It's not just drifting through life. It is consciously being aware of what you're doing, what your real purpose of life is, your dharma. Mm-hmm. And now he's going to give a suggestion here.
It is no use to fast as long as you require food.
Aha. Yeah, so many people think that is going to make me more spiritual if I go for long periods of time without eating or drinking.
To get rid of the inward desire is the essential thing, and to mimic the real thing without it is barefaced hypocrisy and useless slavery.
So, yes, getting rid of desire, contemplation again. We have to be aware at all times. It's not ceasing to do certain things. It's losing the desire for them. If you have no desire, then it's very easy. When you're a child, you're basically pure because you don't have some of the lustful desires that adults have. So that's why Jesus said, unless you become as a little child, you cannot enter into the kingdom of God. It is that desireless purity that we're striving for, and that takes work.
It's working on the cause of it, not just the act of it. Don't just like put handcuffs on yourself and say, no, you can't do this. Do it until you figure out how you can address the reason you want to do it, and do that work instead of just stopping the physical act of whatever it is.
It's growing out of it. It's becoming an adult instead of a selfish child immersed in this world of desires and lusts and acquisitions. Once you realize how vacuous that is, then you rise above it, and it has no attraction anymore.
And it also relates to repulsions. Attractions and repulsions are both the same, have the same strength. Without realizing the significance of this most important fact, anyone who for a moment finds cause of disagreement with any one of his family, or has his vanity wounded, or for a sentimental flash of the moment, or for a selfish desire to utilize the divine power for gross purposes, at once rushes in for contemplation and dashes himself to pieces on the rock, dividing the known from the unknown. Wow, he's a great writer. My goodness.
Yes.
Wallowing in the mire of exotericism, he knows not what it is to live in the world and yet be not of the world.
Yeah, that's our goal. Live in the world, but don't be part of it.
If back in 1884 we were hearing this quote here, I wonder where this actually came from. Be in the world. Was that a biblical quote?
Yes.
Be in the world, but not. Oh. Did Jesus say that?
Yes, it is from the Bible.
That's where that came from. Okay, that's cool. In other words, to guard self against self.
All right, your higher self
against the lower self.
Yeah.
is an incomprehensible axiom for nearly every profane. Oh my gosh, I love listening to his words.
His method of delivery has changed drastically.
Profane, oh wow. The Hindu ought at least to realize it by remembering the life of Janaka, who, although a reigning monarch, was yet styled Rajarshi.
Actually, it's like Rajarishi.
Oh, was yet styled Rajarishi, and is said to have attained nirvana.
Now, if you don't know the story of Janaka, look it up. It's very interesting. A Hindu tale about a Raja who was enlightened, and some of his subjects didn't believe that. So he called them all in, the people who were accusing him of pretending to be enlightened. And he said, I want you to put this jar of water on top of your head and walk the entire length of this street. And if you spill a single drop, I will have my men kill you. And so they did that, had the jar on their head, walked the entire length. What they didn't know was that there were voluptuous women on either side dancing and trying to entice them to lose their concentration. And when they made it all the way to the end, he said, what did you notice during your experience? And they said, how could we notice anything? We were fearful of our lives, and the only thing we were concerned with was not spilling a drop of water. So he says, well, now you know how I can be a Raja and also be an enlightened person. He has no attraction to all of these outer world things.
It'd be wonderful to not be attracted to or repulsed from.
It's a very interesting story and has a real message to it.
Some people would think, but what's the purpose of being a human if you can't want things, like things, and dislike things? The emotional roller coaster makes us human. That's a different conversation that we've already had many times.
Yes, we have.
Raja Yoga encourages no sham, requires no physical postures. It has to deal with the inner man whose sphere lies in the world of thought. Raja Yoga doesn't require any physical postures. That's true. The first requisite for it is thorough purity of heart. Well might the student of occultism say with Zoroaster that purity of thought, purity of word, and purity of deed, these are the essentials of one who would rise above the ordinary level enjoying the gods. A cultivation of the feeling of unselfish philanthropy is the path which has to be traversed for that purpose, for it is that alone which will lead to universal love, the realization of which constitutes the progress towards deliverance from the chains forged by Maya around the ego. No student will attain this at once, but as our venerated Mahatma says in The Occult World, and now he's going to quote Sinnett's book, the greater the progress towards deliverance, the less this will be the case, until, to crown all, human and purely individual personal feelings, blood ties and friendship, patriotism and race predilection, will all give way to become blended into one universal feeling, the only true and holy, the only unselfish and eternal one, love, an immense love for humanity as a whole.
And again, this is something that we have preached. Unless you have this pure love for all of humanity and even more for our entire planet, the plant life, the animal life, unless you have this unconditional love for all people and all things in this world, you're not ready to be a chela yet. That is a prerequisite that cannot be tossed out. Morya is very direct. KH is the epitome of unconditional love, but Morya too is a very loving, kind person. He's just more apt to cut out all of the extra nice words and get to the point faster. So there you have it. That's what, according to Damodar, contemplation is, and it's definitely something we can all work on every moment of our life. That's a very real possible goal.
Wow.
Now, let's finish up letter number 117, which was about the Kittle incident. He's given all the reasons why he shouldn't be thought of as a conscious plagiarist, but maybe an unconscious plagiarist. And we displayed his corrected copy on the screen. So, again, make sure you've watched that session. And then he continues the letter here.
This is the true copy of the original document as now restored. And now, if you have understood my explanations about the process, you know why, though somewhat disconnected, the sentences transcribed by the chela are mostly those that are now considered to be plagiarized, while the, quote, missing links are precisely those phrases that would have shown the passages were simply reminiscences around which were clustered my own reflections on that morning. In those days, you were still reluctant to see the old lady's phenomena as anything beyond a variety of spiritualism and mediumship.
Remember that letter, which I believe was letter number 12, if I'm not mistaken, was early in the process of receiving these letters. And his primary focus was spiritualism and mediumship. And as K.H. says, he was still very much in the realm of spiritualism and thinking that this was just one more variety of spiritualism.
For the first time in my life, I paid serious attention to the so-called inspirational oratory of the English and American spiritualist lecturers, noting its quality and limitations. I was struck with the brilliant but empty verbiage and recognized fully for the first time its pernicious intellectual tendency. Morya knew all about it, but since I had never had anything to do with any of them, they interested me very little.
And although spiritualism at the time was this hugely popular movement, look at it today. It's all but dead. Almost no one knows anything about spiritualism. It's considered a weird sort of thing that happens and happened more frequently in the past.
Well, the word has a different kind of colloquial meaning. It just means that you're a person who believes in more than the physical world. Oh, I'm spiritual. That's how most people use it. I'm a spiritual person.
Right. But at this time, being spiritualistic especially, meant you were in communications or believed that people could communicate with dead people. We know now that that does not happen.
It was their gross and unsavory materialism, clumsily hidden under a shadowy spiritual veil, that attracted my thoughts at the time.
So it's not spiritual at all. It's very selfishly motivated, it's exciting, it's emotional. It has nothing to do with self-transformation.
It's also a misunderstanding of what the word might actually mean. If you understand the different planes of existence, the spiritual planes are far different than the astral plane, which is where the seances take place and where the communication that they think is happening is taking place. It's not very spiritual. But if you consider the astral realm spiritual, then I guess it is. But we wouldn't.
Sinnett never did fully understand any of what you just explained. Even second generation theosophists were way more focused on the astral plane than anything else. They didn't even understand it. We're going to delve into that a little bit towards the end of our series.
Do you know approximately when the Constitution of Man was given to us?
Well, it was during this whole period when he was communicating. Remember, it was especially during the period when K.H. was in Samadhi and Morya was teaching them. And
we had bits and pieces.
On the one side, the levels of existence of the universe and how that corresponds to the levels of existence of the human being. That's where it came in.
Okay, so it
that
was
early.
Okay, good. It probably wasn't very well understood.
It definitely wasn't.
While dictating the sentences quoted, a small portion of the many I had been pondering over for some days, it was those ideas that were highlighted, leaving my parenthetical remarks to disappear in the precipitation process. If I had reviewed the impressed negative, one more of the enemy's weapons would have been smashed.
Yeah, this is again a missed opportunity. If he had been focused on it and taken more care, but he had been writing for 48 hours and was exhausted and made a mistake. They do make mistakes. It would have been an excellent opportunity to make a real valid point. The same thing happened with Eglinton when he was on board the ship, the Vega. And the Mahatmas had this whole experiment set up, and it was extremely well orchestrated, except that there was one theosophist on board the ship that insisted on getting in on the drama that was going. And so he sent a letter as well, and it was transported, but there was some drama with it because he didn't state that that could be shared with anybody. And so when HPB received it, she didn't transmit that because she didn't have his permission. He then berated her and said, well, obviously she wasn't as good as she said she was because I sent a letter and she mentioned nothing about it. And so there again, one person threw off the entire experiment just because his ego demanded that I want to be part of this.
Having neglected this duty, my karma evolved what the mediums of the future and the banner of light may call the Kittle triumph.
Now he's imagining what the future is going to be like.
May they and their great orator enjoy their triumph in peace and happiness, for no adept will ever cast his Himalayan shadow to overshadow their innocent happiness. Okay.
Yeah, he indulges in fantasy sometimes, too.
To you and a few other true friends, I feel it is my duty to give an explanation. To all others, they have the right to regard Mr. Kittle as my inspirer. I have done, and you may now do what you please with these facts, except make use of them in print or even speak of them to the opponents, except in general terms. You must understand my reasons for this. One does not cease to be a man or become immune to losing one's dignity just because he's an adept. In the latter capacity, one remains quite indifferent to the opinions of the outside world. As a man, he always draws the line between ignorant opinions and deliberate personal insult.
Yes, we mentioned last time that he claimed that none of this affected him, and yet it seems to have affected him to some extent. But it only happened after he started seeing how it was affecting people that he really cared about, HPB, Alcott, and several of the chelas who were trying to help explain what happened and who were being attacked on all sides by both theosophists and non-theosophists. He gave us something very interesting, though, that he makes the distinction between ignorant opinions and deliberate personal insult. We can all do the same thing in our everyday world. When people say something disparaging or derogatory about you, there are two things possible. Either they are just expressing an ignorant opinion, or they are trying to harm you and get a rise out of you. In either case, the very best result would be if you simply ignored it, or if you have to set the record straight, set it straight without emotional drama, and go on your way. Bullies love to get a rise out of people. And if you don't take the bait and don't get upset, then they really are offended by that. That's the best result you can have from a bully.
We know lots of bullies. I can't really be expected to take advantage of the first, to always be hiding behind the skirts of the two supposed humorists.
And that's HPB and Alcott.
And as a man, I've had too much experience lately in such above-quoted insults from Stainton Moses and C.C. Massey to give them any more opportunities to doubt the word of K.H. or see him as a vulgar defendant, a kind of tricky babu before a stern judge and European jury.
Yeah, so he's dealt with it. He's done with it. He explained it to the best of his ability. They're going to see whatever they want to see in it, and he's going to move on.
I don't have time right now to answer your last long letter regarding business, but will shortly.
And we're still talking about the newspaper, the Phoenix. It's not looking good, but there's still a possibility, as we learned in previous letters.
And I won't answer Sam Ward's letter since it would be useless.
Sam Ward is a theosophist and a devoted one. They like him quite a lot, but he's going to explain why he's not going to answer this letter.
I highly approve of his coming to India, but highly disapprove of his fantasy of bringing C.C. Massey here.
Oh.
The result of bringing him would be to injure the cause among Englishmen.
C.C. Massey isn't as devoted as Sam Ward is. He's kind of back and forth and sometimes supportive and sometimes attacking.
Distrust and prejudice are contagious. Massey's presence in Calcutta would be as disastrous as Mr. Ward's presence would be beneficial for the cause I live for. But I would insist upon his passing some time at the headquarters in Adyar before taking up his proposed labor of love among the officials in Calcutta.
So Sam Ward was intending to go to Calcutta to help spread the word and to get people more involved and more interested in theosophy. But K.H. says, I would prefer he go to Adyar and spend some time with the founders first before he comes up to Calcutta to try to convince any of the officials of the importance of theosophy. Now he's going to change subject again. He's referring to Mrs. Kingsford, who, remember, had been elected president of the London Lodge. And there is a new election coming up in just a few months. So he's going to talk about that. He makes some interesting remarks about her. She's about 37 years old at this point. She is a medical doctor. She graduated from the Sorbonne in Paris. And she's very intelligent. And she's a devoted vegetarian and anti-vivisectionist. At this time, scientists thought nothing of killing, maiming, mutilating dogs for all sorts of scientific experiments. They were animals. They had no souls. They had no feelings, really. So they had no problem with basically torturing them if they thought it would serve their scientific purposes. And there were a lot of people who took offense at that, but most of the world didn't pay much attention at all. We'll learn that the Mahatmas actually appreciated that a lot. But she also dressed in a way that was a little too much for the Mahatmas and their chelas. They basically said, we would never allow our chelas to be in the same room with this woman who dresses somewhat seductively.
Interesting.
Here he's continuing with this letter.
It is most flattering to hear from Mr. Ward that Mrs. Kingsford, quote, had tried her best to meet me in one or more of her trances, end quote. And very sad to learn that, though she had invoked me with all her spiritual intensity, she could get no response.
He's being kind of sarcastic here.
It is too bad, really, that this fair lady should have been put to the trouble of a fruitless ramble through space to find insignificant me. That's funny. We apparently move in different astral circles, and this isn't the first instance of a person becoming skeptical as to the existence of things outside their own environment. I guess it would stand to reason that the Mahatmas do operate in the astral. I guess that would be the plane where they would travel and materialize in a way. They do use the astral plane.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to learn in the next letter that someone else uses the same method. They absolutely do create an astral body, pranamaya kosha.
Let's see. The Sanskrit system of the five doesn't have a specific one for astral and mental. It's mental, but I guess the lower mental would be astral. It's funny how there isn't a specific astral
Right,
kosha.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yes, they do create a temporary myopic vehicle
Right.
through which they can interact and see and experience what's going on anywhere in the world. Anywhere.
For a reason, but that's very different than the way we preach. I guess we use the word preach.
Yes.
We preach. We don't do it that way. Most humans live in the astral world because that's the world where our emotional vibrations exist, and we mainly have our consciousness focused there without realizing it. The Mahatmas use it for a different reason, not because they're always getting anxious and worried and disappointed and jealous. They're not doing that at all, but that's usually how we use the astral world because of our emotions.
So when they're operating as a Mahatma, they are normally at the Buddhic and the higher mental levels. But if they want to interact with humans at their own level, then they have to use this astral temporary vehicle to do that.
I like how you said the myopic.
Yeah,
vehicle,
it's
because
very much myopic.
And this is too. This is myopic in a way also. It's temporary.
Yes, all structures are temporary.
Yes.
All structures are unstable, and they're also temporary.
Yeah, that's very true. Nevertheless, it is flattering to find her evoking me by name while preparing for myself and colleagues a disastrous Waterloo.
I'm not sure exactly what the Waterloo was. That, of course, refers to Napoleon when his emperorship was destroyed in the Battle of Waterloo.
Oh.
But she has a very fragile ego. She's a medium. She can see and communicate with spiritual beings, some of them lower, but also sometimes she's influenced by her higher self. She tried very hard, apparently, to communicate astrally with KH, and because he didn't make it happen, she got offended, and we'll find out later that she was upset and started spreading rumors that maybe they don't actually exist.
KH and the other masters are really only ever directly communicating in the astral realm only with HPB, right? Is there any other that they actually directly communicate with?
Sometimes they're chelas.
Okay,
Others.
sure, that would make sense. But I guess in our readings here, we haven't heard of like Alcott, for example.
Not normally, although they try to communicate with him, remember, when he's just waking up and in that kind of in-between state. He doesn't have the ability yet to communicate with any degree of accuracy.
I'm asking because she's trying to barge her way into this intimate rapport,
Right.
where they don't just dish that kind of connection out to just anybody.
Right.
Not
Exactly.
even only HPB, really, and the higher other chelas. But
Sometimes they will actually try to communicate with people. For instance, Saint Moses, remember Imperator, and how it wasn't one of those two, apparently, but one of the Mahatmas or some high spiritual being did try to communicate with Saint Moses, and it was basically a waste of time.
Right.
That's why they don't do it.
I mean, she's bold. People have tried to find them physically, which also fails, obviously. But she tried to contact them astrally, which failed.
Yes.
You can't just barge in.
As he told Hume a long time ago, who was planning to go to Tibet and find them, he said, don't bother.
Yeah.
If we want you to find us, we will meet you at the border.
Even if we're 10 feet from you and we don't want you to see us, you won't see us.
And if we don't want you to find us, you could bring an army and you would not find us.
To tell the truth, I was not aware of the evocation. Oh.
So he wasn't even aware of it and wouldn't have responded anyway.
So
I'm
someone like
assuming.
her, or maybe a more powerful person could, but it's not even really possible to force it.
No.
I mean, maybe a black magician could.
No, not a Mahatma.
Absolutely not.
Other people, yes, they could.
Yeah. Okay. I was not aware of the evocation, though painfully conscious of the disaster she's preparing.
And
Oh,
again,
gosh.
we don't know exactly what that is. Maybe it will become clear in other letters.
Yet, even if the dismal plot had never entered her spiritual mind, I don't think I could have responded to her call. That's interesting.
Oh, and okay, and he's going to explain why.
There seems to be very little affinity between our two natures. Oh, that's interesting. She is too haughty and imperious, too sure of herself for me. Besides, she is too young and fascinating for a poor mortal like myself. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can trust myself.
Is that what he means, really?
He's being facetious,
Okay.
obviously.
Okay.
But now he's going to go on to a different subject.
But speaking seriously now, Madame Gebhard is quite another sort of person.
Madame Gebhard, she becomes a very important theosophist. The Gebhard family in Elberfeld, Germany, became devoted theosophists and were very helpful in the theosophical cause. He was a manufacturer. He dealt in fabrics and other merchandise and was quite wealthy. They had a mansion and would often host several people to stay with them at a time. And they became very good friends with HPB. She went there several times to visit them. And Sinnett also visited them at times. They were very devoted, and most of them remained devoted. We're going to find out later that one of the sons started creating problems, and we'll find out about Arthur Gebhard later.
Madame Gebhard is quite another sort of person. Hers is a genuine sterling nature. She is a born occultist in her intuitions, and I have made a few experiments with her, though it is Morya's duty, not mine, and as you would say, it wasn't originally intended that I should be made to visit all the sibyls and sirens of the theosophical world. What's that a reference to?
Sirens are mythological creatures that entice people to their destruction. Sibyl is kind of like a medium.
My own preferences make me keep to the safer side of the two sexes in my occult dealings with them.
Yeah, they have very strict rules about not interacting physically with women.
Though for certain reasons, even those visits in my own natural skin have to be extremely limited. I enclose a telegram from Mr. Brown to the old lady.
I assume that is Mr. W.T. Brown, who had that experience along with Alcott and Damodar in North India.
Okay.
I assume that's him.
A week from today, I will be at Madras on my way to Singapore, Ceylon, and Burma.
Oh, so he's going on a long trip.
Singapore? That's Singapore. Oh my gosh.
Singapore, at the time, was part of the Malay Federation. It is now a city-state in its own right, but it was a major center there. Singapore, Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and Burma, which is now Myanmar.
Wow, so he's traveling far. I will answer you through one of the chelas at the headquarters. Wow, I want to know who all the chelas were. That's so cool.
Many of them kept out of the spotlight. They didn't want to be thrown in with all of the drama that some of the others, Damodar and Subbarao, exposed themselves to. So we can't blame them for that.
But at the headquarters, meaning like at Adyar, there were people there that were direct chelas of the...
Well, there was Damodar, for one. I don't know who else was there. Subbarao didn't live at Adyar that I'm aware of, but he did live in Madras, which is now Chennai.
The poor old lady is in disgrace. Oh dear, no.
He's being facetious.
We have nothing against the old woman except that she is one. That's funny. How old was she at this time?
Let's see.
What year is this? 1883?
She is 52.
And that's considered old, or just because of her health condition?
She just called herself old. When she was in her 40s, she said, I'm just an old hippopotamus, and referred to herself as being old all the time.
To save us from being insulted, as she calls it, she is ready to reveal our real addresses and thus lead to a catastrophe.
Yeah, I guess she's been so upset by all the drama that's going on that she says, you don't believe in the Mahatmas? I'll tell you where they live. You can go check on them.
The real reason is that the hapless creature has been compromised too much, too bitterly insulted owing to our existence. She's the hapless creature?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. It all falls upon her, and therefore it is only right that she should be screened from some things.
Yeah, she takes everything on her personally. And as we know, her emotional state is very fragile. And we've talked about why that is. She does the best she can, but everyone around her looks at her like, why can't she control her temper better? And Sinnett and Hume especially have never understood why they would have any chela like her. They, of course, know exactly why. There's no one that could replace her. Sinnett's going to find out at some point in the future just how much that is true.
Yes, I would like to see you become president of the London Lodge if possible. Unless permitted by the Chohan to act on other lines of business, for example, psychologically, I no longer trust the goodwill of my countrymen for the rebirth of the phoenix.
Yeah, he's getting less and less confident in that.
Feelings between the Zemindars and the riots are now intensely bitter, and anything attempted by the natives now is sure to be opposed to the bitter end by the Europeans in India. Let's drop it for a while.
Yeah. So that's on pause, not looking good, but let's go to something else.
The Chohan, by the way, sends you his blessing.
Imagine that. And then when he says, sends you his blessing, that is something real.
Right.
That's like a burst of energy.
Yeah.
So hearing
Wow.
those words, and I'm sure Sinnett only thought of it as a greeting, hi there.
No, it's
And
an
he
intentional...
probably did not understand that a blessing can be a transformative experience.
That's really cool.
Yeah. The Chohan at this point is quite interested in Sinnett and has a good feeling about him.
I still want to know who he is. Or she.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
still want to know. Who is it? Where are they?
And it's almost certainly changed since 1883.
Oh, yeah.
Someone else is probably filling that position. Maybe it's KH.
I'll answer your questions in my next letter. It's funny how he's said that twice now, but this letter is so long. I'll answer your questions in my next letter. If you find time to write for the Theosophist and can induce someone like Mr. Myers, for instance, I would be personally obligated.
Mr. Myers, we're going to hear about again. Mr. F.W. Myers was a founding member of the Society for Psychical Research and had a very prominent position within that organization. At this time, the two organizations are seeing very eye to eye. And many Theosophists are members of the Society for Psychical Research and vice versa. So they are sympathetic and everything is on a good relationship basis right now.
You are wrong in distrusting Subarao's writings. He does not write willingly, but he will never make a false statement.
I'm not sure what that refers to, but Sinnett had misgivings and thought maybe he was being untruthful about something.
See his article in the November number of the Theosophist. His statement concerning the errors of General Cunningham ought to be regarded as a whole revelation, leading to a revolution in Indian archaeology. Oh, wow.
General Cunningham, I believe, was a Theosophist, but other than that, I don't know much about him.
The chance that it will receive the attention it deserves is about 1 in 10.
KH, the odds maker.
Why? Simply because his statements contain sober facts. And what you Europeans generally prefer is fiction. That's true of Americans too.
yeah.
So long as the latter dovetails with your preconceived theories. Oh my God.
And
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed. No. Someone could present the unvarnished truth to us and we're like,
We don't
oh
want-
no,
no.
that's not even possible. Never.
That doesn't go along with what I've been thinking my whole life, and I'm not wrong. No way.
Yeah.
There's no chance I'm wrong.
If we only realized how much that costs us to disbelieve the truth and to choose to believe something that is false.
Only because we want to be right.
Our ego demands it that we be right. But if you learn to be honest with yourself and with other people, your life will get a whole lot easier. You may not think so, but give this some real thought and contemplation. Change your life. Learn to be honest at least with yourself. Don't attach your beliefs to what your ego wants you to believe. Instead, be willing to go against your ego and to see things as they really are. Use that flashlight. Examine yourself and admit your faults. I have numerous faults, but I'm not afraid to admit them to myself or to anyone else. That's the only way we're going to make progress. If you insist on believing a lie, you're lost.
And he signs the letter KH, and then he says, the more I think about it, the more reasonable your plan of a society within the London Society appears to me. Try. Something may come out of it.
Remember, a year or more ago, Sinnett was talking about possibly having 7 different stages of membership in the society. And people could graduate from one to the next by following a program of study and learning different parts about theosophy. This was after so much of the doctrine had been explained. He envisioned 7 different levels, and the Mahatmas were in favor of that and said, why don't you come up with a plan? He never did. He might have tried and realized just how daunting that would be. But now he's got the idea of an inner group, and they like it. KH says, you know what? The more I think about it, the more I like the idea. Why don't you try it? We're going to find out that it was the Mahatmas that decided to implement that with HPB, not with Sinnett.
So this is the genesis of the esoteric section.
Yes, exactly.
I'm actually surprised that, well, fast forwarding to today, has there ever been an actual attempt to implement these stages of advancement, of grades of study in the Theosophical Society?
Within the esoteric section, which is now called the Esoteric School, they do have grades.
Oh, do they? Oh.
And you can advance from one to the other. Whether or not there are any accepted chelas or Mahatmas involved in that, I couldn't tell you.
But that doesn't relate to initiations? No.
No.
I mean, okay.
Not what KH and the Mahatmas refer to.
You know, it doesn't seem like a bad idea, though, if there is a course, a curriculum. I mean, the Theosophical Society has a ton of things, but I guess there's a suggested kind of like, for beginners, do these things. There is that on the website. There's the suggested readings, and there might be some outlines of courses maybe.
But here's the problem. If you're focusing on information, you're bringing it down to an academic level. Yeah. No chela ever became a chela because of academic study.
Yeah, you're right. I wasn't thinking. It would be better served to do it as a guru-disciple relationship where there's practice and self-meditation and study and real-world stuff. Harder to do without an actual teacher, I guess.
Harder or impossible?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
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 What we're talking about is not academic at all. It's completely different. And theosophists today still don't understand that. They're very focused on people having doctorate degrees and master's degrees and being recognized as an academic somebody. Guess what? Most of the chelas are an academic nobody. And yet, who's the chela and who is in touch with and working with the Mahatmas?
It's interesting, huh?
That's the way it is. Now, this next letter is very interesting. And guess who it is?
Morya.
Morya comes out of retirement again to make an appearance. And we're going to find out why. He spied on Sinnett one evening on December 15th, 1883. He noticed that something was going on in London. He's like, wait, I think I might need to pay a little attention here. So he's going to describe what happened.
My humble pranams, Sahib. And pranam is like a greeting, right?
Yeah, it's the...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Your memory is not good. Have you forgotten the agreement made at Shimla and the passwords that have to precede every genuine communication coming from us through a buddak or medium?
Bud, of course, is spirit, and dak, D-A-K, remember, is, I believe, both a Hindi and a Sanskrit word that means some sort of delivery system. Oh. So he's calling a medium a spirit delivery system or a ghost delivery system. Now, what was it? Do you remember something about passwords?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Well, it actually was from letter number 96, where KH said, and it was a PS to that letter, he said, it may happen that for purposes of our own, mediums and their spooks will be left undisturbed and free not only to impersonate the brothers, but even to forge our handwriting. Bear this in mind and be prepared for it in London. This was more than a year earlier. Unless the messages or communication or whatever it may be is preceded by these three words, Kyutan Nalanda Dharani, no, it is not me or from me. And that applied to any of the Mahatmas, not just from him. Kyutan Nalanda Dharani. Those were the three passwords. So he said, your memory is not good. You forgot. What is he talking about?
How likely the seance of December the 15th, coroneted card, what does that mean? Coroneted?
There was someone who attended that seance, we'll find out later, who was part of the peer system. It was a lord, a person of title in England. Oh. So there was a card that had the crown on it, meaning that he is part of, not royalty, but part of the upper class, the people who have a title.
How likely the seance of December the 15th, coroneted card, my letter, and all. Very similar, as a Pelling pundit would say.
Foreigner. Pelling is foreigner.
Yes, first a loving greeting from the old woman to Loney, misspelled on the card as Lewis.
The old woman is the old lady, HPB. So somebody presented a communication from HPB.
Then to C.C. Massey, whose name she never pronounces now, and that greeting coming after supper when CCM had already left.
So some of them who were at the seance, or maybe all of them, had supper at someone's house. We're going to find out where. And C.C. Massey left after supper. He didn't stay for the seance, but the spook delivered a card for him, and he wasn't even there.
Then my message in a forged handwriting, when I am at dead loggerheads with my own.
He can't write clearly to save his life, but apparently this card was quite well written.
My supposed message was from Ladakh and dated December 16th, whereas I swear I was at Lhasa smoking the pipe you gave me.
If you remember, 2 years earlier, Sinnett was in London visiting, and he brought back a hookah for Morya, and it somehow was delivered to him. He was smoking Sinnett's pipe.
Best of all, my asking you to prepare for our coming as soon as we have won over Mr. Eglinton Sahib.
Aha. So, Mr. Eglinton was the medium. And the message was, as soon as we have convinced him, then we will come and visit you. Meaning KH and Morya.
One Saturday, and Lord Dunraven having failed, why not try again?
Lord Dunraven, that's the Earl. He was actually Thomas Wyndham Quin, the fourth Earl of Dunraven and Mount Earl. He was an Anglo-Irish peer. He was a correspondent, a sportsman, and a politician, and he was also very much interested in spiritualism. He actually helped a family member write a book about it.
Oh, wow. A solemn evening that Saturday at Piccadilly over old Sotheran's, the moldy bookseller.
Sotheran's, what is that? There's a very famous bookseller in London, even today, called Sotheran's. And it was established in 1761 in York and later moved to London. And it's still in existence today at 22 Charing Cross Road, which is near Piccadilly Circus and in the area referred to as Piccadilly.
I knew the premises well, felt amused, and watched, with your permission.
Apparently, Sinnett knew absolutely nothing about it, but maybe his higher self gave permission.
Why feel so disgusted? Spooks worked remarkably well, unabashed by my presence, of which neither Eglinton nor his bodyguard knew anything.
So,
Oh, wow.
Eglinton, remember, was a trance medium. Mm-hmm. So he would go into a trance, and then different spooks would operate through him. And it sounds like maybe even his body was moving, not just lying in a trance and speaking. But this area of London at the time was okay during the daytime. It was a pretty commercial area, like this moldy bookseller, for example. But in the evening, it became more of a hangout for prostitutes and people of the night. And it had a rather lively nightlife.
My attention was attracted by their forging HPB's handwriting.
That was what got his attention at first.
Then I put down my pipe and watched. Too much light for the creatures coming from a Piccadilly street, though the Southern Emanations helped a good deal. I would call your friend Mr. Myers' attention to the psychic fact of rotten emanations.
So the emanations coming from this bookseller, and he had really old books and used books, as well as new books, I believe, but it had some very strange vibrations.
It sounds like something from the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Sotheran's, like Ollivander's wand shop. It sounds like it
Yeah,
seems like
exactly,
that place.
with some very sketchy atmosphere.
Raise a good boot crop.
So all of those emanations and vibrations will conjure up a bunch of boots, spirits.
Yes, the room with windows overlooking Piccadilly is a good place for psychic development. Poor entranced wretch.
So that's Eglinton. He was in a trance, but he's going to tell us more about him. Now he's going to quote something that either Eglinton or his bodyguard, meaning the person watching over him when he was in a trance state, announced.
We wish to state, to prevent any future misunderstanding, that whatever phenomena may present themselves to you this evening, we are in no way responsible for them and have no hand in their production.
So, a disclaimer.
But that's not true at all.
Well, listen to what he says.
Okay. This is pure self-abnegation. Modesty isn't the name for it. He paced the room, and I followed from a distance.
So, you can imagine this. Eglinton is in a trance, and yet he's walking around the room, and here's Morya following him.
Oh, my gosh. But this was stated by the bodyguard or something, right? This wasn't Eglinton saying that.
I'm not sure.
Okay. He went to Mr. Ward's writing desk and took a sheet of his monogram paper, and I helped myself to one. But he's in the astral, right? And I helped myself to one just to show you I watched.
And guess what? This letter is written on that piece of his stationery.
Oh, wow.
We'll put a
wow.
picture of it up on the screen, but it's actually the stationery of Sam Ward. This is not where Eglinton lives. This is where Sam Ward lives.
Wow. So Morya took a piece of paper, he dematerialized it, and then rematerialized it in India, wherever he was at the time.
So Eglinton, apparently, or the bodyguard, whichever, took a piece of Sam Ward's stationery, and Morya says, I'll just help myself to one. Or he duplicated it, maybe, who knows. But
that's funny.
So the stationery is just a very small circle, but it's a compass, directions. And because Sam Ward's initials are SW, there's an SW in the corner of the compass in larger letters. And he thought that was kind of clever, and he would use that as his stationery.
As for all of you, you did not watch very closely while he was guided to place paper and envelope between the leaves of a book, or when he laid it upon the table, or you would have seen something very interesting for science.
Now, this was something on the astral plane.
The clock's silvery tongue strikes 10:15, and KH's form descending a hill on horseback. He is in the far-off woods of Cambodia now. Oh my gosh, wow. Is supposed to cross the horizon of Uncle Sam's vision and disturbs the activity of the spooks.
So this isn't real clear, except that they have no idea that he's actually in Cambodia. But one of the spooks created this vision that some people could see of KH on horseback, and this occurred at 10:15.
The astral disturbance impedes their dull progress. Their bells are fine, very fine.
Yeah, it's kind of indecipherable, but you can see the whole thing. It's creepy. It's kind of weird.
Was KH actually doing that at the time? Was he actually riding a horse?
No.
Okay.
And he's pointing out, they just invent things, these spooks.
I wonder how they know what he looks like, KH.
There are portraits of him that have been circulated.
Right. Okay.
And besides, if it's just a figure, someone describes it, I see KH riding on horseback coming down the hill.
Okay.
So he's had enough. He's just amused and slightly disturbed by this whole scene that took place.
Now, Sahib, you must not be too hard on the wretched young fellow.
And here comes in his compassion.
He was utterly irresponsible that night. Of course, his belonging to your London lodge of the TS is pure nonsense, since a paid medium is no peer for English gentlemen.
So the peer was Lord Dunraven, and he's saying that they're not in the same class, this trance medium and Lord Dunraven, who apparently was interested in theosophy. But Eglinton supposedly wanted to join the London Lodge, and Morya is saying that's not a good idea.
Yet he is honest in his way, and however much KH made fun of him in his card addressed to the Gordons,
and that was the Vega incident,
which all of you took seriously at the time, he is really honest in his way and to be pitied.
Yeah.
He's a poor epileptic, subject to fits, especially on the days when he is expected to have dinner with you.
Which would have been that night.
Oh. I mean to ask KH to request a favor for Mr. Ward to save the poor wretch from the 2 elementaries which have fastened on him like 2 barnacles. Oh my gosh.
So he's got 2 spooks attached to him all the time because he is a medium.
That's not good at all.
No. And
jeez.
When he says elementaries, that's the astral remnants of a person who has died after they've gone through the Kamaloka period, and it's the equivalent of a dead physical body, except on the astral plane.
It still has some energy, though.
Yes, and it gets its energy from living people.
Oh, gosh.
So by itself, it can't really do much except float around, and that's invisible. But when it latches onto someone like Eglinton,
It gets vivified again. So it's basically a zombie.
comes to life. Yeah, exactly.
It's a zombie shell.
Yes. And it has some memory, but it doesn't have the ability to reason.
I've never thought of those as that. That wouldn't be considered like a possession. They're not strong enough to do that. These are not that kind of entity, right?
They can possess him during trance sessions.
Okay.
But they also allow others, obviously, to come in because they weren't the only ones. But these seem to be pretty much a permanent fixture on him.
These are more like taggers along rather than like a demonic, intentional, malevolent entity that takes you over, basically.
Right. And he describes them as barnacles.
Barnacles,
they
yeah,
like,
weird.
They like having this energy
Yeah.
source. So they've just attached, it's
Epiphyte.
It's a parasite.
Parasite.
It's absolutely
Oh,
a
yeah.
parasite. That's exactly what it is. You've seen sea turtles, for example,
Yeah.
just covered with barnacles. This is what it is.
It's not symbiotic. Yeah, it's one way.
It's a parasite.
Parasite.
Yeah.
It would be easy for good Uncle Sam to get an appointment for him somewhere and thus save him from a life of infamy, which is killing him.
Uncle Sam is Sam Ward. He's an American.
He would thereby do a meritorious and theosophical act of charity.
Yeah, so he's saying, I'm going to see if KH will convince you that Sam Ward should find something that he can do besides be a medium. This is killing him.
Mr. Ward is wrong. William Eglinton was not guilty of any conscious, deliberate trickery that night. He got a passionate desire to join the London Lodge. As the wish is father to the deed, his astral tics fabricated that letter of mine through means of their own.
And by astral tics, he means the two barnacles, the two elementaries.
Had he done it himself, he would have remembered it was not my handwriting, as he is familiar with it through the Gordons. Woe to the spiritualists. Their karma is heavy with the ruin of men and women they entice into mediumship, and then throw off to starve like a toothless dog. Wow, that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Mediumship is a horrible profession.
Dang.
I've known some. As I've said, I investigated spiritualism for a while and met some mediums that I liked very, very much. They became personal friends. But every one of them suffered in one way or another, and some of them die fairly young.
At any rate, ask him for Upasika's card with her alleged writing on it.
And he did. He got the card. It apparently is in the London Library, but no one has ever published a picture of it or been able to find out exactly what's on it.
It is a good thing to keep and show occasionally to the Masseys of the London Lodge who believe pure lies and will suspect fraud where none is meant. You are at liberty to regard me as a...
And he spelled out the N word. Both KH and he have used that word before because the Europeans call them that. And they call any Indian the N word.
Really?
Yeah.
Because their skin is dark.
Yes. And in fact, KH is probably as light as you and I are.
He's fair-skinned.
Yeah. But they don't care. They're not Caucasian, so
right.
they don't qualify.
You are at liberty to regard me as a...
N-word.
and savage sahib. But though I am the first to advise Mrs. Kingsford's re-election, I would nevertheless trust Eglinton's clairvoyance over Mrs. Kingsford's, or rather her drawing of her visions.
She was also somewhat of a medium, but she was a higher level of medium. And she didn't tend to just give messages from whatever she was communicating with, but to absorb it herself, and then she would draw a depiction of it or write it out in words.
But this will soon stop. Subbarao is vindicating you by writing an answer to the Australian convert.
And I'm not sure exactly, but that may be a Mr. Terry. There were very few theosophists in Australia at this time, not enough to have a section or even a lodge. So the very few that were interested, they were kind of trying to help get a group started. And there was a Mr. Terry that they communicated with from time to time, and HPB tried to bring along so that he would be a source of attracting other people in Australia. So he's just signed to M, and that was his one appearance again. I think we may hear from him one or more other times.
I hope so.
So, yes, one more very interesting episode. Although this last part was interesting, the more important part is what we learned about contemplation. Really look at that and seriously watch it maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times and see what you can get out of that. It is very useful information. Thank you for following us on our journey, and we will see you in session number 79.